And welcome back everyone on the Decoders channels for a special streams with Simon. Welcome home, Simon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for
Nice,
having us. It's good to be here.
nice, and nice background. And it's sick. It's sick. Congrats to the designer, man. And yeah, we're gonna talk about Kholtak, right? Do I pronounce it well? I have issue with pronunciation.
You got it. That was perfect. Kholtak.
Kholtak. Okay.
That's the one.
Nice. What's up? That's amazing. So, yeah, it's bro. You know what? I will let you introduce it yourself. But can you please introduce you to the Decoders community and what you're doing, what you're cooking on, Solana and Web3 in general?
Sounds great. Well, look, thanks so much again for having us. I'm Simon, one of the co-founders at Euphorica, which is the parent company that's powering
Nice.
Kholtak.
Okay.
So my background is in tech. That's where I've spent the majority of my career, really working across some big organizations and solution providers, but really the convergence of gaming, blockchain, bringing that all together was the real inspiration for where we started from and the journey that we began from. So, we've been building since 2021. That's when Euphorica as an ecosystem began. And where we are today is now moving into really the playable game focus of what we have, which is Ride to Survive, which is all linked to the Kholtaks, which is the graphic you see behind me. And I think we did say that we might even today just show a little bit of that gameplay footage as well throughout the course of this conversation. So
Nice.
yeah, it's great to be here, and it's great to connect with different communities, and we're excited to be sharing more with the Decoders community today.
Awesome. Sure. That's I'm excited to see the footage. So nobody saw those footage except the team, obviously, but like nobody see it. I don't know. It's a worldwide exclusive.
Yeah, this is very. So what we've done is we ultimately in our roadmap we had a milestone goal to hit at the end of this quarter or at the end of June, which was the closed alpha of the game itself. We hit that successfully. So today will be the first time that we've really showed publicly just a snippet of that gameplay footage. So yeah, we can call it a bit of a worldwide exclusive for you guys.
That's what they say at the not the EA presentation, but like the the game stuff, right? So yeah, it's always a worldwide exclusivity, and you are the only project on Earth on the Web3 industry that hits time deadlines and roadmaps on point. So yeah, kudos to that.
Hey, look, I think look in tech, any roadmap that goes out there is kind of a guideline, right? So there's always loads of variables that move around that. But yeah, we were very focused on making sure we hit the gameplay roadmap that we set ourselves out for. So
especially for a game, man, like it's even harder, probably like in the game industry, right?
Yeah, I think look, you talk to any kind of game studio or any gaming developers, there are so many variables that you have to work to and so many elements that you have to bring together, whether it's the creative side, whether it's the art, music, the actual developer design, the 3D rendering, all of that stuff, which, anything can take longer or can be quicker. You might surprise yourself, but you just have to try and have a timeline as best you can to work to. And, we're pleased with the output that we've delivered off the back of our recent sprint. So far, so good. But there's always a long way to go, right?
Yeah, and like you said, like 2021, right? So it's a long journey. But that's even harder, like for the Web3 gaming vertical, because like Meta changed every fucking week, and you need 3 years to be able to build the game and to show something to your holders or players, right? So how do you manage those expectations with like Web3 expectation when like everyone expecting everything tomorrow morning, when realistically to build a AAA games you need 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, and look, that's a great question. And I think, so when I say 2021, we really ideated Euphorica towards the back end of 2021. So it was around sort of October, November that we started to conceptualize what we were going to build and how we wanted to approach it and what we were driving towards. So that then took us into the beginning of 2022, and we started to, I mean, we'd already kind of built the team by that point, and we started to go out for some seed fundraising, which we achieved successfully. But just as we were moving into our private round of funding, you know, all the sort of FTX fallout started to happen. And we'd already gone through, you know, we had Luna as well in the mix. And really 2022, as we know, was the initiation of one of the deepest bear markets that we've had so far. So, you know, for us, we've had to navigate and battle through all of the other kind of broader conditions that, you know, Web3 has seen, which really kind of took everybody a bit by left field. You know, nobody really kind of thought what was going to happen with FTX and with Luna. And then obviously, you know, we had all the SEC investigations happening, and then, you know, we saw what happened with Binance and others along the way. So I think not only do you have a kind of community set that absolutely want everything tomorrow, but then when you throw everything else that was going on back in 2022 into the mix, that really has kind of continued to rumble on into 2023 and beyond. You know, we've had to manage that process throughout building and trying to build community at the same time. So I think it's a good question, because we've really tried to just put our heads down and build as best we can, navigating through those conditions. But we've built very publicly. You know, the community that we've built, we've been very open in terms of how we're building, what we showcase, the development process that we've been through, riding the highs, the lows, everything around that. So I think for us, that's been the best way to manage our project, is just be transparent and open about how we're building and the conditions and challenges that everybody's faced along the way.
Nice. Okay. And what do you see in Web3 that you can do like classically in any other studio that just creating games? And like what Web3 brings to the table in this gaming vertical?
Well, I think actually what I just said is the best example. So being able to build very openly and build a community around a development process.
Okay.
You know, that's something that's really quite unusual in sort of traditional game development. I mean, you can, what would normally happen is you'd conceptualize a game, you take it to a certain stage, then you might put it onto an early access path through a platform like Steam, for example. Or you go the other way, you actually build the entire game and release it and just hope that people like it. But the huge risk with that, which we see, you know, in traditional development, is that, you know, you can spend hundreds of millions of dollars building something, and if players go, oh, no, we don't like this, or it's not for us, you're kind of screwed at that point, right? So I think for us, the Web3 gives you the opportunity to be able to go, look, this is what we're building. These are the mechanics behind it. Give us the feedback. Let us know if it's something you're going to enjoy as a player. Okay, great. Yes, we'll move it forwards. Now maybe start playing it, start exploring what the gameplay is like. Tell us what you think, what needs to be improved, and you iterate on that. So I think that's the advantage that you have in a Web3 environment, which actually is quite a privilege to get that.
And in terms of gameplay, like, do you have any features that players can enjoy with like on-chain? Like, how does that work exactly?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting question now when we start talking about on-chain. So for us, we put a lot of emphasis around the user's identity and how their gaming account links to their progress through the game. Okay. So what we don't do is we don't kind of have transactions happening in real time in the game on chain, because ultimately, you know, Ride to Survive is a race game. And as I said, if we show a little bit of that later, you'll start to understand why, if we were pausing every few seconds to validate transactions, suddenly that's not going to be so fun anymore. So I think that the way we approach it is really to make sure that the user has a pathway to an account that can track their achievements in game. And then the blockchain side is kind of reconciled after the fact. So we can take the data of what the player has achieved, and their on-chain rewards are attributed after that. So that's how we approach it. And that's just because of the genre of the game that we are. You know, if you look at other titles out there that have more of a sort of MMO feel to them, you know, you've got a bit more time to complete an action, register an on-chain transaction in real time. There's not so much disruption necessarily to that kind of a genre of game, dependent on what's happening in the game at that point. If you're in the middle of some kind of crazy fight or battle, and you pause just at the point where you're about to hit the killer blow to complete again, so you start to see on-chain gaming is an interesting topic, because for us it's not necessarily the impact of a player receiving their transaction recognized on chain. It's more the impact that it has during the game itself, and how do you navigate around that to make sure that it doesn't impact on the gameplay.
Okay, and do you have like any tokenization of rewards, or like can I earn an income by winning and having like a pilot career and winning the races?
Well, again, this is so inevitably, there's always going to be an element of tokenization as part of this, because that's the value proposition, right? So, I mean, that's why for us, we are very much exploring hybrid assets, and we referenced SPL-404 as part of that, although that's transitioning now to MPL-404, which is the new Metaplex standard that's coming in, but all Solana based for us. So I think the reason we find that particularly interesting, based on what we're building, is it gives the player a choice. So the player can either ultimately leverage the NFT form of a digital asset within the game, and that could be, you have, in simple terms, you win a race, you receive an NFT, but there is a fungible token aligned to that NFT. So you as a player decide, you either go, well, I'm actually holding on to this NFT because that gives me a status symbol within the community of the game that showcases my progression, or, well, actually, I'm going to swap that NFT for the fungible token because the token is in a place where it's worth me doing that, and I can recognize the monetary benefit of that reward. So it's a choice that the player has, that I think with traditional NFTs in their original form, it was quite hard to deliver that, because ultimately you are just relying solely on the aesthetic of an NFT and any potential utility around it, and that's it. Whereas I think where you've got this hybrid ability to swap and make a decision on how you want to interact, that feels like a more logical path.
Yeah. And in terms of like, the Web3 ecosystem and like the meta and stuff, like I believe that for hybrid DeFi will allow NFT connection to ride, like for example, a MemeCon meta season, and then you can swap back to NFT when all of the price left and right are going to the moon, and then you can swap your token back to an NFT and bait on the speculation of your asset. That's
exactly, and that's what ultimately in the space, that's what users are looking for. They're looking for, where is the use case, where is the value, what do I have, what can I do with it? But equally, well, actually, hey, it's not the token that's interesting anymore, it's the NFT that's actually holding value, and the utility around that, and that becomes interesting. I think there's a ton of additional use cases for games in terms of how hybrid DeFi can work, and that's what's interesting to us, which is why we've gone down that path. But to your point, I think more broadly speaking, hybrid DeFi presents a whole range of opportunities, really, that again comes back to that choice factor for the holder, and that's what you want to be able to deliver.
Yeah, that's like the next few months for the NFT. Yeah, please bring back the NFT market.
It's a shame, right? I think
we need it, bro.
Look, I think first and foremost, there's some amazing creators out there that actually just create and deliver some awesome stuff, whether that's artwork or whether it's what is behind a project in terms of the utility use cases that an NFT can hold. I think, inevitably we've gone through that phase where, we saw really explosive things happening on NFTs, back in sort of 2021. And I think, it's been interesting to see where that's gone. But like we were discussing earlier, I think there's just been so many broader market factors that have contributed to a number of different things. things have kind of had to reset a little bit. But that's why I think hybrid DeFi is such a great opportunity, because it actually does bring NFTs back with an additional value of, opportunity for the holder, which I don't think that was really there before. So I think NFTs will come back for sure. I think, we're already starting to see that bounce a little bit, particularly on Solana, which is why, Solana is such a buzzing ecosystem, because, that is the original home really of NFTs in many ways. But I think, some of the things that are coming through now are super exciting. So I think watch this space closely over the next few months.
It's gonna be cool. Can't wait. Can't wait. Finally see the bags going green and good greens.
Yeah, and I think we've seen. We've seen a little sort of flashes of kind of mini bull runs that have kind of happened over the last
24 hours.
couple of quarters. Exactly. And everybody knows that. I think the conversation really is that Q4, that sort of post-summer, September, October, November,
exactly.
That's the window where I think everyone's preparing for right now. So fingers crossed.
When are you going to launch the game?
Well, great question, right? So I think for us, we moved into hit that closed alpha phase to do just that. So meaning we can get that game into the hands of players as quickly as we can, and give them that taste of what the game can deliver. So right now, in fact, what we're doing is packaging up the game build and starting to seed it out to players to get that feedback. And again, everything for us is kind of heading towards that timeline of, when can we look at our hybrid collection launch, which is what the Kholtaks are all about, and then making sure that feeds into the next wave of the game development side. So it's exciting for us. It's an exciting time.
Nice. Okay. And is that the moment when you want to do the demo? That could be cool. We can do that.
Okay, let's do it. Well, look, I think because we talk about it a lot, but like anything, I think the easiest thing to do is to show it a bit. But I'm only going to give you a little bit, though, not the whole thing. I think that's fair.
That's okay. I will take everything that you will give me, bro. Don't worry about that.
Are you ready?
No. Wait, I have to display the screen. So this is mine. Tack, Simon, tack. I'm gonna put you okay. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. There should be some audio with this, but I'm only going to give you a little taste. Let's go.
Yes, we have the audio. Nice. That's cool. Okay, is that lagging for you?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. That's the bandwidth.
But we'll pause it there. That's all I'm going to give you.
Nice. Okay, is the video public?
Not yet.
Oh.
No.
When are you going to launch it?
So we will let you know, but we're gonna be sharing more and more of that footage, and obviously you've got more and more of the actual. I mean, that's a full ride through that goes through the whole race. But for now, we'll just show a little bit. But what you saw there, I mean, now I can kind of explain a little bit more. But it's a hoverboard battle race game. There is an original soundtrack that goes along with that. So we're very lucky that we have a signed artist in-house that has created a house soundtrack to support the gameplay, which is really cool. And I think for us, we've always wanted to hit that AAA quality benchmark. So, the gameplay is really smooth. You've ultimately got a PvP element going on in there as well. And as you started to see, you're collecting weaponry as you race around. So your motivation as a player is you obviously want to win the race and set the best time, but you want to make sure that you can get into some battles with your other racers, throw weapons at them, create some carnage along the way, have a lot of fun as you go. There are elements of coins that you can collect, virtual coins that you collect as you race around the track as well, which is starting to now introduce why we find hybrid DeFi really relevant to what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think
Oh.
all of those ingredients now start to knit together a little bit.
Okay. So if you collect a coin during the race, you also have the token in your wallet at the end of it.
Or maybe it's the fact that dependent on the success or the amount of the token you've collected during the race, does that translate to an equivalent reward based on how much you have collected and your success as
Nice.
you've gone through?
Okay.
And maybe that's combined with the race time that you set. Maybe that's combined with the impact you've had on other players as well. So I think for us, there's this really cross-dimensional element now of your success and your achievements in game, and how does that translate to a tokenized reward mechanic,
Nice.
which is what we're playing with.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's amazing. Okay. So basically, if your game is good, like people, it will be a successful Web3 game. So what makes a good game from your perspective?
Oh God, that's another really great question. I
That's what I
think,
do, bro. Only
people
good
talk.
questions.
That's why we're here. This because we know you have the great questions. That's why we come on. It's great. Yeah, look, I think everybody when we talk about Web3 games. So you and I were chatting a little bit earlier, and we talked about look, Web3 gaming is really hard. Like it's tough to kind of be in the space. But I think the reason for that is what players are really looking for is fun. It's that simple. Like you just said it there. If players enjoy the game and like playing it, or find that it's interesting and they want to come back to it, then you can have a pathway to success. I think what we've seen in a number of cycles now is.
Are you lagging? Oh, you stopped.
Oh, am I
lost
back? Can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Cool. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I think, what we've seen in kind of previous cycles is, we've had lots of games where the focus has been really heavily on where you can come and play this thing and you might earn some money from it, but, that's it. Whereas I think now, you have really a lot of games that are coming together that are way more focused on the fun side of things and bringing that out and keeping the player base engaged.
Okay. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
You dropped, but you're back.
Damn. Okay. Sorry. It happens to the streams before. Okay. Okay. You're frozen. I have to reload. Damn. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Coming back. So sad. It's okay. No, it's good. Yeah. Restream is betraying me. I don't like that. I have to talk to them in the support half.
But are we back? Are we back?
No, I think we're still okay. Let me check, but I think we're still live no matter what. As long as you're here, we're still live. Yeah, we're live. We're live.
Perfect.
But
Cool.
yeah. So
Yeah, I was just saying before, I think it's, look, we saw a lot of games in the previous cycles that were focused too heavily on the monetary side, and the gameplay
yes.
just wasn't engaging enough. I think the space has matured a lot. I think we've seen a lot of quality game developers come into the space, which means you have a lot of games coming to market now that have been building in stealth for a couple of years, but actually are now delivering their gameplay. And you've seen an example of us doing the same with our gameplay coming out as well now. But I mean, there's titles like, Star Atlas is starting to showcase more and more gameplay now. Luvium showcasing more gameplay, moving into beta. I mean, there's a project called Open, which is starting to. They just dropped a trailer the other day, which is they have the IP to Ready Player One, and that's super interesting what they're doing. So there's just a lot of, I think, interesting, fun games that are coming out now, which is going to be the next wave. Which is why people talk about gaming being one of those key verticals that is going to be a successful vertical over the next sort of year or so.
Yeah, that makes sense. But okay, so what about the budget? What budget do you have to build your game? Like, because for example, okay, so Blizzard, World of Warcraft. Yeah, exactly. Like it's hundreds of millions of dollars to kind of like build Like if you follow World of Warcraft recent extension, that's not really that. But yeah, that's another problem for other streams. How do you compete with a triple, a quadruple, quintuple A studio?
Yeah, I think again, actually, this comes back to the question we were talking about earlier around the benefits of Web3 gaming. So I've said this many times, but what Web3 gaming does is it gives the opportunity for the way smaller indie studios who actually have super talented builders and creators in them to be able to create a game and have a pathway to get it out to market, to distribute it to users and a user base. The honest answer to the question is that no indie studio can compete with huge publishers who have multi-million-dollar budgets. It's just not possible. So you have to take this very indie approach, which is kind of what Web3 values are aligned to, which is you build in public, you get yourselves to a certain point. I mean, you obviously have to be fortunate enough to have the right team that are capable of building and creating what you want to deliver, and we're very lucky that we have that, so that's great. But you do go through a very open build process, because that's the way that you build your user base, because you don't have the budget to be able to go full on into production and build a full title and hope when you release it that people like it, otherwise it's written off. Nobody has the budget to do that. So I think that's why everybody talks about communities so much in Web3, is because ultimately you are building for them back, and you're building with them at the same time. So yeah, look, I mean, nobody is going to sit here and say, oh yeah, we can compete with Sony or EA or Sega or Nintendo. Like you can't. You just can't do it. But what you can do is you can be very indie about the way you approach.
And is that like, what's the size of your team?
So we have, I mean, in the core team, there's 5 of us, but then we have a supporting development studio as well. Oh, I think we've gone again. Let's wait, see if he comes back.
Sorry.
You're back. We lost you again.
Oh my God. What the fuck? Okay. So 5 people in your core team, and your support team is?
Yeah, we have a supporting development studio, which was founded by one of our game developers.
Nice.
So again, we're lucky in that we have the supporting resource to be able to achieve what we set out to do. And we're very lean. That gives us a lot of agility that we can do things maybe that others aren't able to do. But that's the way we approach it. We're very lucky to have the team
that makes sense. And I mean, again, like there is like a Vampire Survivors on Steam. Like this game is like one dude that he coded like the whole stuff, and it was like the biggest hit on Steam or something like that. So yeah, you don't need like 500 employees to make like a banger. Like it can increase your chances of success because then you have a good marketing department, right? But you can have 1,000 employees and do a shitty game.
And that's the thing, right? I think that's what to your example. If you've got the ability individually to just have a passion project, put it on Steam. If it comes back to the original question, if the game is fun and engaging and people like it, you'll get some traction. Like it's that simple.
So how many hours per day do you play your own game?
Good question. It's funny actually, when you spend so much time building your own, you become obsessive about things. So when you first kind of have it, you play it and you're checking that when you are playing it, is it fun? Other development team enjoying making it and building it? Are they having fun? Because that's always a good benchmark. I think for me personally, kind of the more you play it, the more you start noticing things that you need to improve or change or and then sometimes you then kind of need to take a bit of a break from it, because it's like you kind of know it inside out, and some of the surprises in there. So I think it's an interesting question when you talk to game developers about playing their own games. It's like anything, when you build something,
Yeah.
sometimes you need to sort of actually take a break from it
Mm.
for a bit. But then when you come back to it, or you see it, or you put it in the
That
hands of
was good.
somebody who's
Yeah.
never played it before, and they play it for the
Mm.
first time, and you see how much fun they get from it,
Mhm.
that's a really awesome experience.
And
So
and that's a cool feature for Web3 to have a community like ready to beta test it like right away, right? So yeah, it's
yeah, I mean,
pretty cool.
we went to not that long ago. We were in Istanbul for a
Mm.
playtesting event, and we had a number of people come to play the game, and just watching their reactions to it was really interesting. Like some players, I mean, at the time the build that we had, you could only really set the fastest time,
Mm.
but that was enough. Like that motivation for the players, they were loving the gameplay, but
Nice.
equally they were like, has anybody beaten my time? Yes, somebody's beaten your time. Right, I need to play again. I need to play again. I want to be the best. I want to
Nice.
be the fastest. So a simple player motivation like that just gives you an indication of,
Yeah,
okay, you've got a good game here, because they're enjoying the game and
that's a good sign.
achieving that. So that was
Nice.
a cool experience to do.
And with like a racing game, you can do like esport. Like you can get to the next level and have like a team of professionals player that can. And with Web3 features, it's even easier with cash prize and stuff like that.
Well, and again, hybrid DeFi, really
Yeah,
interesting when it comes to esports for that reason. You set your
nice.
prize pool at a certain amount, whatever it might be, but then the rewards can be distributed in the form of a hybrid asset. So
Mhm.
the winner of that reward then has a choice to make, and you can start
Mm.
playing around with the hybrid DeFi really interesting ways. And esports is something that, in terms of the genre of game we are, that's a really interesting avenue for us. And we've had a number of
Mm.
conversations already with some large esports teams who have seen initial footage and are getting really excited by it. So it's certainly an avenue that we are keen to explore.
Nice. That's pretty good. In the chat, like if you want to play the game, let us know. I want to see. I want to see that excitement in the chat too. It's gonna be nice. And like, hmm, that's interesting. Okay. Um, do you see a difference between Web3 holders or like NFT holders, token holders, and the core audience of players that can play the game? Like, is the expectation different, or is there like somewhere when there is a link between those two aspects of it?
Yeah, I think, again, great question. Always with the good questions. I think this is actually one of the biggest challenges
Yeah,
that Web3 has, because it's a very rare industry where you have so many different
yeah,
personas, user personas, that are all hunting, for different things. So
mm,
any element of tokenization, we've seen the reality there where you have community that are just focused on that, and they just want to see
mhm,
the kind of returns from a token side. Then you've got the gaming community as well, who actually are more interested in the gaming side, and you kind of are trying to cater and build for them.
mhm,
On the NFT side, again, there's still a trading element that comes to that. So it's not necessarily that the holder is that bothered about the artistic direction that you're going in from a gaming perspective.
mhm,
Um, so it's really challenging actually for a team to try and weave all of those users together and satisfy the expectations of all of those users.
yeah,
I think, for us, we started into this project because we were really fascinated by what blockchain and gaming could become and what that
mm,
could look like. And inevitably, tokenizing elements of that ecosystem was something really interesting for us. But as you progress and you start to build that community, you do start to realize, that you're dealing with lots of different user motivations, lots of
mm,
different user expectations, and it's trying to manage all of that and how
yeah,
that comes together. So I don't think anybody's kind of nailed that really, and I
yeah.
think that is one of the biggest challenges that the space has for all projects.
That makes sense. Yeah, question from Sean. He is actually interested in the game and is going to ask about rugs. Is there a guarantee that the project will not be rugged? Because many games project rugged even before the game is finished, developed, or even when they are already live and they become rugs. Like, yeah, it's not against you. It's just like because of the past project. Because again, like, it's hard to build a Web3 project. It's hard to build a game. It's hard to do both at the same time. Like, yeah, I mean, how
Yeah,
can we
I
go?
think. Yeah, I mean, I think we have to focus on the definition of the term being rugged, really. I
Yeah,
guess because you know, look, that unfortunately there have been plenty of examples where there's been the promise of something, and then you know teams run off with funds that should have been set
yeah,
aside
our
for
percent. It's
development.
fraud. Like,
Exactly,
yeah,
and that happens. I think you know in the context of a business conversation, you know, there's a different angle there
yeah,
because you know business in general, businesses will go in to build something. You know, there can be a number of factors that impact a business to the point where you know it can't continue for whatever reason. But obviously, that's a very different scenario to
100%.
to a rug sort of situation. I mean, from our perspective, we're a fully docs team, so we've been building for a long time. We all come from varying, different, diverse professional backgrounds from across our careers. So, you know, in that sense, we've set ourselves up in the best way possible to showcase what we're building, how we're building. As I mentioned earlier, we've been very, very public about the way in which we're building. So yeah, I think obviously all I can say to that is, you know, we're not a team that's out to do a rug pull. I mean, we certainly wouldn't be on. We'd be talking here if that was the purpose. I think you put your face to something and your name and your
Yeah.
sort of reputation to something. I think you know that sort of happened a lot back in the early parts of 2021. I think. But for us, we've been very open about how we're building and the future that we want to position for ourselves. And, you know, being able to come on today and showcase elements of gameplay, you know, again, that's just further commitment that we have to what we're building and how we want to build. So that's always the target we've had.
And what's your runway right now?
So in terms of what we're building towards, I mean, as I mentioned, we've now hit our milestone for the end of Q2. So if you look at our original light paper, you can see the milestones that we set. So our next focus is to then open up for the end of the year around making the game more networked, open it up to more players. So, you know, so far, so good in terms of the runway that we set ourselves and the milestone we want to hit for the end of this year.
And like, what will be your business model? Are you going to add like pay to win features like Blizzard again with Diablo 4 shit, Diablo Mobile? Like, yeah, how do you do? Even more in Web3, right? Because again, there is like financial incentive and stuff like. So how do you? So what will be your business model, and how do you not become that Diablo Mobile? Web3 Diablo Mobile stuff.
Well, I think pay to win. It's interesting you mentioned that because you know we've seen I think very quickly that model doesn't really work because if you have to pay to kind of enter in, then you are cutting off a whole player base there that actually kind of you want to get into the game to start interacting with it. So, you know, for us, I think there's if I'd have played more of that gameplay footage and you would have seen more elements of how we have nods to revenue models that exist within the game. So there's plenty of revenue space from within the game environment itself. So advertising inevitably is one part of the model. And sponsorships that come along with that. Yes. I think, you know, you referenced the esports model as well. So looking at tournament-based gaming where, you know, there is sort of prize rewards on offer for that. I think for us as well, inevitably, because of the style and the aesthetic of the game, you know, there are microtransactions that we can put in here. So whether that's different designs of your hoverboard, whether that's different styles of race suits, whether that's different, you know, elements of power traits that you can acquire and then evolve. So, you know, we've got a number of, I guess, streams that have been built into the business model of what we're looking to achieve. And we look to explore how we can deliver that for the player, but then equally how we can go more sort of, from a B2B standpoint, that revenue from advertising, how can we explore that? And you see that occur in many game examples where you've got outside revenue models to build into what you're doing.
Yeah, so finding the business model is not that crazy hard once you have the audience that play, because again, that has been cracked for
Exactly.
and it works pretty well. Same thing for Decoder, same thing like content creation. You can sell your services to edit, but you can also advertise in sponsorship and so. So that's pretty interesting. Do you based on the other games in the ecosystem, or even in Web 2, Web 3, whatever, did you get inspiration of successful or unsuccessful games and lesson that you can learn from them to do and not to do in your own venture?
Definitely, I think there's learnings every day in this space, right? I think kind of you see things where you go, okay, let's not do that. I think actually, if we come back to, the original inspiration for the way we designed Ride to Survive was taken from 3 to 4 key traditional titles. So there was a game called Wipeout, which you may or may not remember, but that was really significant at its time, and this is in the 90s, because it was a really fun race game, and it was a sci-fi themed sort of race battleship race game at that time.
Yes.
But what it had was a real emphasis on the music that was part of that title, and actually that became a real cultural shift for house music in the 90s through video games. So that was a real influence for us, and we wanted to replicate and bring in some of those inspirations to this. Then Super Mario Smash Brothers was a key influence for us, just because of the battle mechanics. Mario Kart, obviously, we as a team all have grown up playing that. And then Pokemon, from the sort of characterization and the sort of aesthetic of the characters and creatures, which I've not shown today, but that's a whole other sort of part of what we're building. So I think we took a lot of inspiration from those traditional titles that we know are just tried and tested mechanics in terms of gameplay. I think in the Web3 side of things, what we've learned over the past sort of 18 months is, and we talked about it earlier, pay to win, or, pay. Just paying in general can be a blocker. So I think we didn't want to go down that path where we were forcing players to have to buy in some way just to be able to access. So I think that was one learning. I think, building very publicly and making sure that we were keeping our user base updated in terms of what we're building, how we're building it, why we're doing what we're doing. We do all of that, and we publish out every week an overview of the week's traction and successes. So being very transparent is good. And I think those are all the learnings that we've taken. I also like your bald head,
I shave,
by the way. So it is looking very smooth. I have to say that.
It's smooth. It's smooth. It's smooth as fuck.
But yeah, we've taken a lot of learnings from the space, right? And I think we just try and make sure we keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Can you name one of the biggest fucked up of gaming industry ever that you will always remember?
Actually, do you know what? The actual name of it has just conveniently slipped my mind. But what I will say is, do you remember there was a title, and it was a huge noise about it, and they put out some sort of artistic sort of trailer stuff that kind of made it look incredible. And when it got released, it was literally like a block in an empty field, which just looked horrendous. And it just and it became very clear that it was a whole rug pull, and the whole thing was a complete scam.
With the green Pepe stuff. It was a Web3 one, or
it was totally Web3. And I can't remember the name of it now, actually, because it was a couple of years ago. But I think that was one example of just promising everything and delivering nothing,
Nothing.
and then
Yeah.
disappearing. They raised a lot of money, I think.
Mm.
There was a lot of funds that were piled into that disappeared.
That shit is so damaging for all of the legit project that try to build. Like it's mad. Just for a couple just for a couple of million rug, then they do that, and then
Well,
the damage for years.
and I think that's why we are very open about how we're
Yeah.
building, because
Mm.
it's just the easiest way that you can showcase
Mm.
how you're approaching things.
And I don't know 1%. And like, do you see like, are you going to use like streamers to play the game on Twitch and like on board outside of Web3, or like is it just like for Web3 people? Like, how do you approach that?
So one of the things we're doing right now actually is pulling together a collection of different gaming streamers,
Nice.
players, KOLs, influencers, giving them with the intention to give them access to the game, so they can do just that. Because in terms of coming back to your question, competing with the major studios, you have to do it in a slightly different way, and you have to try and get organic reach by utilizing those streamers who have an audience that can give you that sort of feedback that you're looking for. So yeah, that's definitely part of our strategy in the short term, for sure.
Yeah, try to get Asmon Gold, because if you can convert him into Web3 gaming, that's a big W.
We will try. We'll do our best.
Nice. That would be amazing. Because he hates every like NFTs and Web3 gaming. Because his tech is quite interesting though, because he's saying like, if you had like earning mechanism into a game, people will min max it, and they will consider the game as like a earning income and like a job. And so you are losing the entertainment factor of games. So yeah, it's definitely interesting take.
I think we have to be very careful with that as well, actually.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really great point, because did you see the other day, Roblox have got a partnership with IKEA, right?
Okay.
And IKEA launched a pilot where you could apply to get a job in the IKEA world of Roblox. And I think it's interesting because, and they've not been they're not positioning it as it's a super fun game, but it's also your job. They're just like, it's a job, but you do it within our world in Roblox. So I think if you make a very clear distinction of what the job is, then it can be interesting. I think where you've got a game like ours and like others where it's an entertainment focus, that can't be positioned in the same way necessarily. So I think we've got to be really careful about how we position that moving forwards.
That's going to be an interesting challenge. That's for sure. Because again, like you will get all of the Web3 gamers, but like it's like 12 guys in the room instead of the whole world, right? So, and for you want the whole world. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
And you can be a professional gamer and obviously earn money from doing that. That's fine. But I think it's just how we position what does a kind of a job look like in a game, and is it sort of a game anymore, or is it just actually no, it's a job in the virtual world?
Yeah, no, exactly.
You position it differently, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. So what do you want to do? Like, do you want to get into that vertical, or do you want to be seen as like a normal game where with Web3 layers?
Yeah, I think we've always focused on the entertainment side of things. That's the thing that we're passionate about. We wanted to make a fun game that had an ecosystem that surrounded it that you could scale out to. So I think that's always going to be our focus. We don't want to be boring.
And which is good for gaming. Yeah. So good game first, and then Web3 layers. That's definitely
exactly
cool.
correct.
That makes sense. And what's your take on the current state of the gaming industry in general? Like, because we saw so budget wise, like it exploded, and then the more money you have in games, the less fun that becomes. It's kind of like crazy, but I mean, I'm kind of like quoting like Asmongold because I watch that guy a lot. I don't have time to play anymore. I played a lot of like World of Warcraft when I was younger, but no, my whole gaming understanding is coming from these guys. But like again, like you have a lot of indie games that are really fun and stuff. So yeah, like where are we going in the next few years? Like, is that going to be like the falling of the big AAA studio and like the rise of indie studio? Like, what's your vision on that?
Yeah, I think a lot has happened in the gaming industry over the
Mm.
last 2 years, which actually has quite a significant impact on where things are heading. So
Yeah,
I think if we try and break it down, you've had, I think if we think back to the impact of 2021 and Facebook rebranding to Meta,
yeah,
I mean, that suddenly, at that time, you saw a huge influx of capital because suddenly,
mm.
Metaverse was the meta at the time,
Yeah,
literally, and then you had people coming out with that trend and that focus, and you had a lot of investors investing in that because that was going to be the next wave.
mm.
I don't think it's necessarily played out in the way that people thought, but then in
Indeed.
the exactly, and in the gaming side, you've had Microsoft, for example, with their acquisition of Activision and everything
Mm.
that's come with that. What's happened there is you then got, lots of smaller divisions within those huge companies being shut down because
Hmm.
things consolidate. So you've got a lot of good game developers, being made redundant or going out of work. Where do they go? Well, they either go into the indie studios or they start spinning up their own
Hmm.
indie studios. You look at what Netflix are doing, their model is quite interesting because they're
Yeah.
interested in gaming, but their approach is to onboard indie studios to support the building of content to go on Netflix as a
Hmm.
platform.
Yes.
So you've got this kind of really strange sort of dynamic going on at the moment where you've got big studios just trying to come in and consolidate and reevaluate how they move their business models to more of a
Yeah.
sort of games as a service environment. You've got the impact of game developers spinning up their own studios and creating some amazing titles, but
Mm.
doing it in a very indie way. You've got Web3 gaming maturing and starting to deliver the quality and expectation that I think gamers wanted to see at the beginning, but it's taken time to
Mm.
get there. So I think for me, what we're going to see is, the big studios will keep focusing on the titles that they know are
Yes.
successful. So, if you look at whatever that might be, whether it's Call of Duty,
Mm.
GTA, you know, big franchise titles that the community operate within that they can scale out.
Yeah.
Fortnite, obviously, Roblox, huge, virtual platform that millions of players utilize. So I think there's going to be a lot of focus on those. I think you'll have indie studios continuing to churn out just
That's
fun,
interesting.
smaller titles
Yeah.
that I think will either be swept up by bigger players or onboarded into different streaming platforms for people to play.
Mm.
But I think it's going to be a really diverse dynamic in gaming that we
Okay.
see over the next 5 years, I think.
Okay. So you expect like a Call of Duty 27 and all of the new IP coming up for indie studio. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Like
Yeah.
if you look at what's happening with
Yeah.
look at Fortnite as an example.
Yeah.
Fortnite started as, a focused game, which it was everything was to do with the game. That was the attraction to it and the social
Hmm.
element that came with that. It's taken time, but that is probably the best example of the
Yeah.
metaverse as it was originally
Yes.
imagined, where you've now got players coming in and we're seeing examples of music concerts and festivals happen virtually within Fortnite. You've
Mm.
got the retail
Yes.
opportunity where players are buying different skins of branded assets.
Mm.
So I think the player base is already there. You've
Yeah.
got hundreds of millions of players playing it. So the opportunity to scale that is
Mm.
obviously makes complete logical sense. And it's the same with other titles that have that kind of player
That
base.
makes sense.
So you wouldn't necessarily reinvent them. You'd keep bringing new features out,
Yeah.
but I think adding more things into the mix to help that.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I think that's where it's going to go, and I think we're starting to see that happen already. I think.
So when Kholtak on Netflix?
Exactly, or when Kholtak within Fortnite, Unreal Engine
See?
Fortnite creator. There's an interesting avenue there where you can create your own world within that player base. So
That's cool.
that's an interesting distribution model, possibly.
Okay.
And Epic have been quite good at embracing blockchain gaming. Actually, if you think about Steam, that's very different. Steam they don't want to touch it really. So,
yeah.
but
It's against the business model by itself, right? Like Web3 will cannibalize all of the business model.
well, yeah, because if you think about assets within a traditional game,
Yeah.
the publisher owns the rights to those assets, and
Yes.
if the game sunsets for whatever reason, you as a player you lose those assets. That's the benefit of blockchain gaming, because whatever happens to the game, if you have an asset and there's a value to it, you can transact it.
Yeah, but if the game is dead, this value you can okay. So like I have a gun in GTA 1, and nobody's playing GTA 1 anymore. Maybe I will be able to use it in GTA 6 because it's the same IP and stuff. But if the whole Grand Theft Auto IP died, there is absolutely I don't see a reason why I would be able to use it in World of Warcraft.
Well, and this is where so there's two things there. One is interoperability,
Yeah.
which is very, very hard to achieve. So I think
Yeah.
your point is correct. I don't think trying to take an asset from one game into another has a number of technical challenges aligned to it. But I think on the transactional side, I actually think of it more like memorabilia. It's like, if you have an asset to a game that dies for whatever reason, if there's a particular rarity to that asset, that has value.
Yeah.
And that takes us into a conversation about rarity, which we probably haven't got time for today. But
like, you have 3 minutes, bro. That's gonna be a stretch. But no, that's for sure. But you need to come back, because so we can do a show of interoperability in Web3 gaming. That could be a good one.
that would be a good one, because there is
Yes.
a ton of stuff to unpack in
Yes.
in that topic, for sure.
So you just earned an episode 2. I'm excited. That's cool. Is there any talking points that I forget to mention during the hour?
No, I think we've covered a load of stuff. I think all I would say is, as always, the best way to keep up to date with what we're doing is follow us on our social channels. So go to @Kholtak on X, and then you can check out Planet Euphorica as well. We are working towards our upcoming hybrid launch. So by being engaged with us on our channels, that's the best way to keep updated on all of our release news and our timeline. And Discord is another place to go to. We have a lot of our engagement activities and events happen in our Discord channel. So go and check that out as well.
Nice. And you can find all of the links in the description. I just dropped them in the chat. Join the community, enter the Kholtak universe.
Nice.
That's cool. Can I have can I be part of the creators for the beta?
100, definitely.
Okay, I will stream it. I will stream it.
I was going to say we'll connect after this and see how we can make that happen.
Awesome. That's gonna be a banger. And if you can give me the video too, so I want to watch it. I will not share it. I will just for me. But Simon, thank you so much for your time. That was a banger. I'm excited for your game, bro.
Thank you. Look, I said it at the start, but look, thank you for having us. That was awesome. And I really mean it. They were some really good questions that we had as part of that conversation. So kudos to you, my friend.
Thanks. That's what we do. We ask good question and then we get better answer. Evan, that's cool. That's what's up. But again, Simon, thank you so much for your time. Everyone in the chat, follow Kholtak, Planet Euphorica. I mean, like, I would have problem with pronouncing all of the names, man.
You're
Thank you
doing
so much.
perfect. That's all good.
Thank you so much, Puttypoof, Nearby for I'm gonna highlight it again because why not? Proko Borisov, thank you so much and David, Shaun, and everyone in the chat. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the Kholtak Discord. Bye, everyone, and thank you again, Simon.
Thanks so much, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. We'll see you in the next one. But before that, make sure to subscribe,